Welcome to the Encrypted in Grey podcast. If you're drawn to the messy, murky, and mysterious corners of life, Encrypted in Grey is your next must listen. This podcast fearlessly dives into the grey areas where truth blurs, beliefs clash, and clarity is often elusive. From moral dilemmas and fringe science to taboo topics and personal paradoxes, each episode unpacks the complexities we often shy away from. With thought-provoking discussions, real stories, and a dash of wit, Encrypted in Grey invites you to explore what lies between black and white, and maybe even change how you see the world.
Welcome back to Encrypted in Grey. Today's episode is all about synchronicities and some strange ghost stories. I've got Joseph, Tonchi, and Matt here with me, and we're just going to dive right in. So, Joe, let's kick things off with you. Have you ever had any experiences or weird coincidences that still stick with you till this day? Or maybe something that felt a little too strange to be random?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me come talk about, the house and things that we might have experienced. I remember hearing about your guys' stories a lot. Personally, I don't have anything specifically that jumped out to me. There were weird nights, weird things that were heard and weird presences that were felt, but no, I don't have any one specific instance that stuck with me from that house.
Okay, but do you recall like a lot of my encounters as well as like Mom's?
Absolutely. One that sticks out to me that we spoke about pretty recently was that you were, I guess, up in the middle of the night, you said, and I think you were watching me at the time. I think it was just you and you heard the sink going on in the bathroom pretty frequently, and you were convinced that it was me coming out of the room. And you let it go a couple times, and you said that you yelled out into the bathroom that, to stop messing around with the sink. And then when you finally got up to tell me to stop, I wasn't there. No one was in there. And you said you came and checked on me, and I was dead asleep in my room. So that was pretty freaky.
Yeah.
I was there actually, and it was early in the morning when that happened. And we, both of us, Mia and Ciara and myself, thought you were in the bathroom. And we both saw you go into the bathroom. We saw a little kid, looked just like you. And yeah, we opened up the bathroom door and there was nobody in there and you were in your room sleeping.
You don't recall ever like having a friend while you were cleaning up your room that you would talk to at all? Because I know Mom and I remembered pretty vividly that you would go in your room when you were asked to clean up your toys and you would talk to somebody, and then there's actually full-blown arguments that you would have with somebody that you seemed to getting like you would get really frustrated with. And I remember Mom just talking it up, maybe it's just an imaginary friend, but whatever imaginary friend you had, you guys seriously had some like serious altercations over whatever it was that you guys were talking about.
My imaginary friend must have been a real jerk off then, but no, I don't remember like a physical embodiment, or a look of it. Looking back at it now, I'm pretty sure it was just an overactive imagination. I think I
Right.
just enjoyed mimicking,
I'll tell you what you did, and maybe your dad remembers this because we even talked to the pediatrician about it. Because you would go in your room and you would be playing with your toys, and you would go, "Hi, Jojo. Hi, Jojo. What are you doing? Hi, Jojo." And you would do voice, and we were like, "What is this kid doing? Who is he talking to?" Hi, Jojo. No, Jojo.
The creepy part about it is that we saw what appeared to be you messing our eyes into the hi Jojo kind of the doppelganger type of thing.
I mean, maybe he came out of my body, went for a stroll, that other split personality, but no, I don't remember too well. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ciara, what did you experience? I mean, we know a little bit what you experienced in the house. Do you want to talk about when I started getting into the Buddhism and you saw something pretty creepy? You had a weird experience. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, well, first off, that house, that's kind of when I started having spiritual encounters. Kind of prior to that, I can't really recall anything, but it was in that Smith Place house that I did start having some things I really kind of couldn't explain and fears and things like that. I remember the guitar would go off on its own. I remember Buddy's ball, our dog's ball would kind of roll and move occasionally. Little weird things here and there. And then of course, obviously when I, like Jojo explained, hearing the sink turn on and actually seeing what appeared to be him and walk into his room and then knowing that he wasn't, it wasn't him. And then all of a sudden I remember feeling like right behind me, feeling like something was there. I wasn't sure if someone was in the house. That's kind of what it felt like just somebody walking into the room. And I remember I look over my shoulder, and in the hallway, I did observe a man, an older man. Um, and I would say that he was kind of just staring right at me, and he grinned. And I was taken by surprise. It was like absolutely the most fearful experience I've had. Because he didn't look like a normal human being. He did look like a deceased old man. And then the fear that that experience or that energy had, it was just nothing I would hope ever to feel again. But it did feel very sinister. And yeah, I remember that happened, and I screamed. I remember leaving the house and actually running across the street to my neighbor, and I couldn't even bring it to words of what it was that I happened to see or saw, or I couldn't even make sense of if it was real or was it just because I was chanting. Like I don't know what exactly that was, but that was at that time the first thing I've ever seen with my own eyes that didn't make any sense at all. And also, it kind of came out of nowhere because I wasn't thinking of anything while I was chanting. I literally was just reading a book and reciting, what was in the book. And then just to have that happen, like just, normally looking over my shoulder just to see, who walked in on me. And for that to have appeared, that kind of did, it was, pretty traumatizing. But I can't explain exactly what that was.
You were chanting like meditation?
Yeah, I was reading a book. The book was in Japanese, if I'm correct. I think it's in Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reciting what was in Japanese and just chanting and looking directly at the Buddha. It's called the Bushidan. And my mind in the state of that, in my state of mind at that time was completely clear. I wasn't emotional. I literally was just focusing purely on reading this book and chanting. And then again, the fact that that happened to me, it just didn't make sense. It did come out of nowhere because I wasn't emotional. I was not scared of being alone. I was, pretty preoccupied for that to happen. And again, I don't know why that happened or what it was, but I did vividly see like a gray, tall man that was grinning at me. And it kind of like, as I was staring at it, making sense, it wasn't like a quick glimpse. It was there for a good minute. Like I don't know exactly how long, but it wasn't just like a quick glimpse. I was able to stare at it long enough to really have vivid detail of what it was that I saw.
What's interesting is that the house is in New York, Staten Island, New York, and the history of that house prior to us buying it, I know that there was a man who lived in that house who actually passed away of a heart attack in the bathroom. So the bathroom was in that hallway. So
hearing both of you talk about this, it actually did remind me of one thing. It nowhere near the level of what Ciara explained, but I was a mama's boy growing up, and anytime my dad was at work, I would come, sleep in the bed with her. And there was one night where I saw a shadow on the wall of the silhouette of a man. It seemed like a bald man. I guess it could be a woman, but it was just a bald man, tall on the wall. And I guess we attributed it to maybe, light from outside, casting on somebody, just lining up really perfectly to make that shape. But hearing that someone passed away in that house and you had this experience, I wonder if the two were related.
What did kind of also make sense with him passing in the bathroom is where I did see him was right outside of that bathroom. So there was an opening to that hallway, and directly, that door directly to that hallway was the bathroom. So like the fact that I did see him there did correlate with him passing in the bathroom. So I mean, the area that it did take place is relevant to that.
You said what you saw looked kind of not human, Ciara?
Well, no, it looked human, but it definitely appeared deceased. It didn't appear, a healthy, vibrant human. It appeared more of a grayish color, and you could almost see like the dark blue veins in it. It would appear if that person was like deceased.
Did it cause fear in you?
When I saw it, yes, it felt absolutely not good. I felt in danger. I felt that it was something just sinister. I just felt like this wasn't just like, a neighborly ghost or like a grandmother figure, or you know what I'm trying to say, like what you would
And then,
imagine a spirit, like a loved one coming visiting you. Definitely was not
yeah.
that feeling. I felt like a sense of danger when I did see it.
And did you turn and leave, or it disappeared and then you left?
Um, I remember just turning and running out the house, and I remember like running and actually running across the street to a neighbor to go get help. But I couldn't even explain to her what happened. I remember wanting to tell her, like, oh my, like I saw something in the house, but then also realizing how can I even explain that, to a neighbor. So I remember just like crying and just not saying much and just waiting for my mom to come home.
That house had a weird energy for sure. Like we would all be like fine in like moods. There was a lot of arguing, I think, or just like mood swings in that house. That house was definitely, it would be interesting to find out more history on the house.
Well, I don't know if you guys recall, but our dog's behavior at random times was a bit abnormal. Like I remember
Yes.
he would go into
Yeah.
like the kitchen doorway and just like get super tense. All the hair would, go up on his body, and he would just bark and bark and bark at literally nothing in the kitchen. Do
Buddy
you guys
would do
remember
that.
that?
Bark at anything, like nothing. Do you remember?
Yeah, and he'd get caught in a stare for a little bit. He'd stare over the corner or over towards the kitchen.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was strange too because the layout of that house there wasn't a lot of furniture or a lot of spaces where things can be that you could attribute it to. Maybe there was a bug or some type of rodent. Like when you'd see him get caught in this glare into the kitchen, I mean, you had a full view of the floor plan, the floor, everything was above. Like if there was something there, chances of you missing it were slim.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, his behavior was definitely weird. I remember like the guitars would go off often, but honestly, knowing the guitar is that sometimes when they are exposed to temperature differences, the tuning of the strings will kind of shift, and so they can make noises. That it would be a logical explanation for the guitars going off. But I do remember myself and having a friend over and actually
Yes.
experiencing that happen, and like it caught us by surprise. We're like, oh, the guitar just went off, and we both kind of got spooked out and both got scratched by
But
nothing.
when you say went off, yeah, you mean it just sounded like something like strummed the strings?
Yeah, like someone would strum the strings. It did sound like all the strings were hit, not just one or two. It sounded like a perfect stroke. I do remember that caught our attention, and a friend of mine at the time that was having like a sleepover, we walked up to it and we kind of were spooked out, but then we also realized we were scratched on our arm. And we weren't scratched by anything, but we did look down and have those scratch marks on our arm. Don't know if my mom recalls that, but
I don't remember the scratch. I do remember the guitar thing because I know that I remember very well the person who spent the night that night did not want to spend the night at our house again.
yeah.
Is that where
Yeah.
you had like
Yes, that's a good thing to bring up. So this happened at the house, which my kids, Joseph was at school, Mia was at school, and my ex at the time, he was at work. So I was completely alone in my house. There was nobody in the house. And it's New York. We don't leave the doors open. We lock all the doors. So I remember cleaning my house. I remember cleaning my bedroom, sweeping the floor. So I know for a fact there was nothing on my bedroom floor. I know that. Absolutely know that without a doubt. I remember taking a shower, getting cleaned up, walking into the bedroom, and on the floor was a necklace with like made of like silver, like pewter. It was an ankh that appeared on my floor, and like this really tiny miniature tomahawk. And it was just lying on the floor. And it tripped me out because I know what I know. That wasn't mine. I'd never had that necklace. My kids were gone and there was nobody in the house and it just like an apport. That's what they call an app. It literally just appeared there. And I had that ankh for a long time and it did creep me out, but I did have like a sense of like, oh, well, maybe this is, I don't know, protection. I don't know, but I kept it for a long time. Both the Ankh and the tomahawk, just as it appeared, it disappeared. I don't know. It just, I don't know whatever happened to those. Ciara had the Ankh for a while. And till this day, I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared.
You
Just
know,
like,
I did wear that Ankh all the time. I almost felt like, you know, religiously, I wore it every day, all the time. I loved that necklace. And I'm telling you, I have no idea how that disappeared till this day. I had no idea. I always had it on my dresser, gone. I remember we tore up that whole room, moved the
yeah,
dresser, furniture, everything,
yeah,
and it was completely gone. But that kind of ties into maybe what like an encounter JoJo had, or if you want to start touching about your dime experience with things kind of just appearing or having like a symbolic sign.
Yeah, so this is very different. This was much later in my life. This is way past that house, but I personally feel it's my one unexplainable experience, and my one truly encrypted in gray, thing. And about 2 years ago, I was living in Jersey, and all of my friends still lived in that part of New York. So very often I would drive, about an hour and a half down that way to, see my friends. And there was one day where, it was normal. We had plans that night, and I said goodbye to my family. And as I walked past, I guess the turn that you would take to go to the front door, I admired them playing with my little brothers. They were smiling, they were laughing. It was just like a nice sight. It was nice to see that positivity like that. And the second I broke my line of sight with them, I felt a very specific feeling that I wasn't going to see them again. And it wasn't like a normal, like, bad feeling. It was something very different. The best way for me to explain it was if I were to describe, like, telepathically getting a message. I didn't hear the words that I wasn't going to see them again or something was going to happen, but it was a bad feeling that conveyed the message. And I'm very skeptical of this kind of stuff. So I was just like, oh, that's weird. I'm probably just, getting FOMO before I even leave. So I just left. And as I was driving, I gave my mother a call because she's into all this stuff. I'm like, hey, recently I've been around a lot of deaths from friends and family. And, I know that whole death comes in threes thing. I asked if I could be the third person, because they say that death comes in threes. And she, as a mother would, asked why I would worry about that, what was going on. And she told me, she's like, if you ever have a feeling in your gut or your intuition, just trust it. The worst that happens is that you stay in one night, it's not the end of the world. She's like, but if you were meant to take that message and you were meant to stay home and you were meant to stay off the roads, usually a sign will coincide with that in physical form. Sometimes it's a feather on a pillow. Sometimes it's, a message from an old friend. Sometimes it's a dime somewhere it shouldn't be. And the second she said those words, I popped the quickest Yui I've ever done in my life. No more going out. I sped home because that morning before all of this occurred, my father came home from work early and he was hugging me and his wife. And when he hugged his wife, she put her arm over, his shoulder and was like, what the hell? She's like, what is this? And there was a dime stuck to his like trap, like on his skin, which I think we can all agree is a peculiar spot for a dime to be in. I think that's safe to say. So I remembered that from that morning, and we all just laughed at it and think about it. The second she mentioned, if you have this feeling, you find a dime. So I came home, and nothing else came of it. I didn't hear of any stories on the expressway or anything, but I feel like those things lining up as fiercely as they did, and never before or after have I had a feeling like that in my, part, whatever. I just felt that was something that was kind of unexplainable.
Definitely for like, I honestly was expecting you to say like you saw a dime in the road or like in your car, but the fact that it was like on his shoulder, and like that was pretty, yeah, that's
Yeah,
like undeniable. Like,
if I looked in my coin pouch in my car and I was like, oh, I gotta head home. How often does that happen? So I don't know. I'd love to hear, you know, if you guys have any similar stories like that, any moments where your intuition might have saved your life or put you on a different path.
honestly, like, felt like I've had, like, small things like that, nothing, like, as, like, intense or fierce, but I felt like I've had, like, certain synchronicities with with a feather, only because, like, I remember I kinda wasn't feeling good. I've been going through stuff with, like, my own health stuff and having that, you know, fear of, the worst case scenario. And just kind of, I could say, in a doom and gloom mindset, again, worst case scenario, things like that. And being outside, I remember taking a quick walk and looking up, clear sky, no wind, no cloud, no birds, no nothing. And as I'm looking up, I'm literally watching a feather fall like right directly in front of my face. And like as I felt, like it wasn't just like, okay, cool, a feather. It's just the fact that again there's no wind, no bird, no nothing, for it to just miraculously perfectly fall in alignment in front of my face at a time when I was just feeling, a bit dark, I guess you could say. It just, the feeling I had associated with getting that little feather at that perfect timing made me feel like extremely faithful and positive. Like, you know what, this is temporary, this too shall pass. Like, we'll get over this. But to me, it just felt like divine timing, or just exactly what I needed in that moment to completely shift my perspective.
I don't even know where to start with a lot of those things. I've learned, and again, from my grandma and from my mom, like the universe has a way of talking. If you just learn to listen and watch for the signs, it will tell you in weird little ways, just like that. The dime, the feather, sometimes that gut punch feeling like, oof, something, something's off. And I've learned to listen to those things and kind of recognize some of those synchronicities that take place. I do feel like it is a language, if that makes any kind of sense. There is a language, and it takes a lot of time and thinking out of the box to start understanding that language.
I
So
feel like
yeah,
it would take
I've
a lot of time, not only just, but I feel like you also have to, it's definitely a language, because there's times where you can almost read into everything to where it almost means nothing. You know what I mean? And then there's
right.
times where that one thing literally means everything. So it's like, it's definitely encoded.
And
Yeah.
that's really interesting about it being the language of the universe, because, if you apply that to any language, the words themselves don't always have to have any meaning. It could be sarcasm. It could just be something to pass the time. Like, learning a language fully is to learn when those things matter, and when those things apply.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the coolest parts about the platform you guys made here, is that even though something like that isn't necessarily paranormal or extraterrestrial in nature, it's a part of existence that a lot of people can probably relate to and wonder about and love to explore more.
What about you, Matt? Have you had any like experiences like that where like just something like divine timing or just like a message, something?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to think about that. Because I remember being here, something going on, and like I can't remember exactly what it was though. But then I get in my car and I'm driving down the street, and the radio like turned on by itself, and it was like changing stations on its own. But yeah, I'd have to think about that to recall exactly what was going on.
Man, I had a day where I was like, I woke up and I just did not want to leave the house. I just had that weird freaking feeling like, when you wake up and like the day just starts off shitty. Like I wake up, you spill the cup of coffee, you stub your toe, and it's just like everything follows. And I just had that gut feeling, just stay home, just stay home. And I didn't. I was like, okay, you're being ridiculous. Everything doesn't have to be about just, and I wanted coffee. And so I got in my car at the time. And again, I, for some weird reason, I kept telling myself, you just stay home. Got in the car, was driving out of the neighborhood, hit the stop sign. And right before I was getting ready to like pull out, a car behind me fucking rear ends my car, and it didn't do a lot of damage or anything. It just kind of just tapped, and it was that moment I was like, yep, turned my car around, came back in. I remember telling, one of the girls that were here, I'm not leaving the house today. I'm just going to stay in my room. And I think everybody should just stay in the house, because I don't think we should be on the road. And I just felt like that day I should have listened. I mean, thank goodness nothing happened. My car didn't, get totaled or anything like that. And not, we didn't exchange insurance information because it was a tap. But it was like those moments where I should have just listened to myself. Could have been worse. Could have been nothing.
Have you ever has anyone had these weird like encounters where you're thinking of somebody that you haven't spoke to in a long time, you're thinking of them, and then literally that day or very, very soon after, like, you'll get a phone call or a text, but it just seemed too much of a coincidence because, like, you literally have not had contact with them in such a long time, and then they, cross your mind, and then boom, they call you, you get a text, you're like, "What the heck was that?" Because I have had that where a really good friend of mine, I haven't talked to her in, like, years. Years went past, I haven't had her on social, we lost numbers and stuff like that. Literally no way of, like, reconnecting from our end, and I remember one day I came out and I was telling Kenny, I said, "I really miss my friend Nikki. I've been thinking about her. I actually had a dream about her last night." Mentioned it. And Kenny can attest to this. Within 5 minutes of me saying that, after me saying that, within 5 minutes, he got a message from Facebook. And it happened to be from Nikki. And it said, "Hey, I've been looking everywhere. You're the only name I remembered. Been missing Ciara. There's no way I can get a contact with her. She doesn't have social media and I don't have her number. Is everything okay?" And we both I didn't even know how to feel about that or how to react because of the fact she went through arm's length to track me down and find her, and we both happened to be thinking of each other, around the exact same time. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys had something like that, but I just felt like to me that was destiny for us to keep in contact in our life.
Well, you could talk about actually what happened here, Matt, about when you first moved in here, you heard the 3 knocks and like a electronical voice through the wall.
Well, it wasn't an electronic voice. Well, when I moved here and was here by myself in this house, it was kind of weird because a few times, like, I would hear something. I was asleep, but I heard something from the wall, and you kind of wake up and you're like, well, was that a dream? Was that not a dream? But I really felt that I didn't dream it, that I actually heard it and woke me up because I heard like some taps on the wall above my head, and it happened a couple times though. And then one night I was just kind of out, just kind of laying down on the couch, and I wasn't sleeping. I was awake, but I was just kind of relaxing. And I had like some, kind of like a white noise thing that you can play on YouTube. And I heard kind of like a click. This sounds stupid to say, but like on signs when they have the baby monitor and they hold it up, it's like, hold, you'll ruin the signal. And they hear that kind of that clicking chatter coming through. I was sitting here listening to the white noise, and I was awake. I wasn't asleep. And then I heard that come through the speakers, and I was like, what was that? And I sat up and I rewound it because I thought, well, it had to have been something in the audio that I was playing. And I rewound it. I played it back, and there was nothing. But I know that I heard it. I know it came through the speakers. So yeah, that was kind of weird.
That one is pretty weird.
And it was clear, and it wasn't like some interference, it wasn't the radio, it was just a YouTube video. But I heard it clearly.
Go back and listen to that and see if it was there.
Yeah. I rewound it and listened to it over, and it wasn't anything that was in the video.
Oh, that's crazy.
But I never heard it again after that.
Did you check the wiring and everything?
It wasn't the wiring. I mean, it's never done that, and it wasn't like a staticky sound. It wasn't an interference sound. It was a distinct, clear, like I said, just kind of a clicking.
Yeah. This house,
but it sounded like audible, like a noise someone would make with their mouth.
Yeah. This house is really calm and really peaceful, and people come here and they feel relaxed and need a peace and all of those things. But some bizarre things have happened. Like I was asleep. I thought it was a dream of a lady standing next to my bed saying that I should wear pink tourmaline earrings and that her name was Alice. That was a dream. So I thought, okay. And then Ciara, you were here with Emmy, and Emmy's in the other room and she's watching a show, and she comes out and we're sitting here, and Emmy, straight face, just looks at us and goes, Grammy, how old is Alice? And I just looked at Matt, and Matt and I just kind of looked at each other, and I had told Ciara about that dream and we didn't think anything of it. So Matt went into the room and watched, trying to see what she was watching, to see if maybe there was somebody on the TV name Alice or something. And no, there was not. She was watching a cartoon. Nothing to do with Alice. She just popped out. How is Alice? Which I thought that was
Well, shit. That about wraps up the synchronicities.
yeah. Yep.
All right.
You
Well,
want to hear a synchronicity?
huh?
And you don't know, I'm kind of distracted. Somebody texted me on my phone, you know, and I just kind of looked at it, and it was like a number I didn't recognize. It's the dude from the Bruno Dunes. Remember we were just talking about
Oh
that
my
the other day to
gosh.
Ellie?
Holy crap, for real?
Yes. A couple years ago, we went camping, and we took the trailer to Bruno Dunes, and we got there kind of later at night, but there were these people next to us, a group of them, and we just, you know, they invited us over. We went over there, had a drink with them, hung out, you know, people were going to bed. And then I was kind of up talking to this one dude for a little while. Somehow that came up the other day. We were talking about it, and we said something to Ellie about it, my daughter. And I don't remember, but so the guy I just got a text, and he's like, you know, hi Matt. And I'm like, well, who's this, you know? And then he said, you know, this is so-and-so. He says his name, and I'm just like, who was that? I don't know who that is, you know? So I searched it, you know, and the number is a Colorado number. So I searched it, and it pulls up this person, you know, who looked familiar to me. And they said like what his career is. And I'm like, oh, okay. I remember who this is. This is that guy.
So that's
Because I
just
knew
what
he
Mia
did.
was talking about.
And it said like Colorado, but that's odd that we're talking about it and it happens to me
right now
while we're
Right.
having this.
Yeah. As I'm saying, that's about it for synchronicities.
But yeah, so he tells who it is, and I look it up, and it says he does that in Colorado and Boise, and I was like, oh, this is the guy.
That's the universe right there.
Yeah, we
talking
were
to
just
you.
talking about.
And yeah, and this is like happened we met him a couple years ago, and you know, haven't heard from him since, but somehow it just came up the other day, and now he texts me right as we're recording this.
I was just explaining that, like, you know, you don't really talk to them. There's no contact. It was like years ago, and you're thinking of them, and somehow, some way, they find you. And it's like, that's exactly what I was talking about. So I think the universe was listening, saying, hey, Matt, I'll throw you a little bone.
All right, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
If today's exploration left you stirred, unsettled, or simply thinking deeper, that's the point. Keep challenging, keep questioning, and meet me back in the grey where the conversation never ends.